Hello and welcome to Flavors and Frights, where food, folklore, and fear collide. My name is Ashlee Hippolyte, and I am the host. Flavors and Frights is all about celebrating cultures and traditions through the art of storytelling. Each month, we'll highlight a different country and we'll hear firsthand accounts of ghosts and supernatural encounters. I'm excited about our first guest, who is Jamaican and has Jamaican roots and has a lot to share on this topic. Hi, Chelsey. Thank you for joining me for Flavors and Frights. A little bit of background for the audience. We met through my cousin Renee, and we really bonded, I think, when we were brucking out, being crazy in Cropover in Barbados.
Best description.
Exactly. So I am really excited to dig in a little bit more into Jamaican culture through your upbringing and your background and you sharing your story. So if you can start us off, if you can introduce yourself and then also talk a little bit about your Jamaican roots.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to be a part of this, by the way. Thank you again for inviting me. When you sent it to me, I was like, I have literally never heard of anything like this, which is why it's the best reason for us to do it. And I really have an epic story that I feel like has been ruminating in my head since I was a child. So I can't wait to actually tell you all about it.
Yay.
But for the audience, my name is Chelsey. I was born and raised in South Florida, but my dad moved back to Jamaica when I was 4. And I literally spent every single holiday that you can think of that wasn't even a holiday in Jamaica growing up. So summers, Christmases, Easters, random weekends, like anything that you can think of, I was in Jamaica. I still feel very much ingrained in Jamaican culture, especially because the households that I was raised in were so Jamaican, like 99% patois, not American English.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring that up to say, like, I think when I'm in Jamaica, people are always surprised that I wasn't raised in Jamaica because my accent is so thick, being from Ochi especially, where it's like, okay, she's from the country. You can hear that she's clearly from here. And then when I tell people, no, I was actually raised in the States, they're like, I would have never been able to tell. Like,
Yeah, the accent is legit.
Yeah. Like if people ask where I'm from, I say Jamaican. I think that's like natural Caribbean instinct too.
Yeah.
Like once you're Caribbean, you're going to tell people whatever Caribbean island.
And for someone that is only familiar with Jamaica from the lens of TV and media, what would you say like your Jamaica is? Because I feel like people only see a certain side of the culture.
That I'm so happy you asked that because I think especially in the last couple of years we have focused so much on the negatives about it and the negatives about the music and the negatives about some of the, gang wars and things that have been going on, which I feel like is honestly everywhere. But Jamaica to me is really, I would say, a culmination of people all from different origins, which I think is the most beautiful thing about the Caribbean in general, but specifically, it's not even just about being Jamaican as it is a melting pot of other cultures. When you meet a Jamaican, you know you met a Jamaican. Like, yeah. They are going to tell you that they're Jamaican. They're going to talk about the fact that they're Jamaican. They're going to boop, 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 like we're in Jamaica right now. There's just this pride and energy about being Jamaican that I think makes our culture so beautiful. And it's never in a way that is like, sometimes it could feel like we're bragging a little bit. But it's almost in the best ways. Like, it's like we have all the best evidence to back it up. Like, don't let us talk about Usain Bolt. Don't let us talk about Bob Marley.
What would you say are some of the superstitions that you grew up believing in Jamaica?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like they span such a wide spectrum. Like it can go from ghosts all the way down to something like and I'm just going to full on talk in my accent, by the way, like if you hand middle itch, that means that you're going to be getting money, but it also depends on like which hand. So for instance, like if your right palm, that means that you're going to get money. If your left palm, that means that you're going to lose money. But it also fluctuates because I've heard people on both hands, once them hand mingle itch them, that must mean they have to go play lotto right now because they're going to win the lotto right now. So that's like a fun one. But then on the flip side of that, you also have like, don't make lizard jump on you because that means that you could potentially be pregnant. And I really don't see how these two things go together because
it feels like every superstition, someone's getting pregnant. I feel like that's what
someone is getting pregnant. Like. And I'm always like, why are women at the brunt of the superstitions? And why is this lizard jumping on me now?
We need to dig into that for sure.
Need to dig into that one. There's also a few, if you point at a grave, like the spirits will come and get you. And if you don't like cut your fingers off, that means that they're not going to stop chasing you. And it's not all scary. A lot of it usually has to do with money or pregnancy. And then of course you have like the common ones like don't open an umbrella indoors because that's bad luck.
Yeah.
Things like that that I feel like I've also heard across other cultures as well. But my favorite one, which I've always found so funny, and this happened to me actually when I was married, is if you miss a pant loop with your belt, that means the person is cheating on you. And I remember one time I really did miss a pant loop. I didn't even recognize it, and he was the one that pointed it out to me. And I wasn't thinking about it in the moment, but then like when life started to happen and we really started to go through some real life things, I remember saying to myself, it's because I missed that damn pant loop. You know, if I had just did that correctly, we wouldn't even be in this situation right now.
It will
Okay.
haunt you. It will haunt
You
you.
would have been faithful.
Crazy about superstitions, right? It's kind of like horoscopes. You feel
Yeah.
that it's coming to fruition because it's just a tougher time in your life and you need that guidance. And I would love to hear more. Was there a point that really shifted your understanding and beliefs in the supernatural?
What do you guys call ghosts in Trinidad? Do you guys call it duppy?
Jumbie.
Okay. We call ghosts duppy. Duppy.
Okay, I've never heard of that.
Duppy. So
Duppy.
I'm going to answer that from two different lenses. So I would say in Jamaican culture, like, duppy is just prevalent overall. Like since you're a kid, once you're talking about something scary or some sort of supernatural spirit, it's a duppy, right? And your parents will use that to try to get you in line sometimes, like, oh, duppy gwen come feel if you don't behave yourself, like things like that. But the second portion of it that I was going to mention was that growing up in my dad's side of the family that was Christian Pentecostal, I think that there are obviously a lot of beliefs behind that from a religious perspective on angels and demons
Yep.
and spirits when you pass away and what that means for you in the afterlife and going to heaven and or hell if you don't, follow certain principles.
What was your first experience seeing a ghost or the paranormal?
I feel like a lot of people have paranormal experiences that maybe feel to be negative. My uncle passed away when I was 13. And this would be the first time I would say I had like an actual encounter that felt to be connected to me. My uncle passed when I was 13. And before he passed, him and I didn't have the best interaction. He was like a very fun type of uncle in a sense where my younger brother is 9 years younger than me and he was like 3, and my uncle was like throwing him around and he was like screaming and wailing because he didn't like it.
Oh,
And I remember I was such a big sister at the time, when that was happening at like 12, that him and we kind of got, it wasn't an argument, but I was like, put Milan down, like he doesn't like that, he doesn't like that. And he got a little upset because he was like, why are you worried about how, he's playing, he's having fun? And I was like, no, my brother don't like that. My brother don't like that. Put him down. Anyway, fast forward to after he passed. I will never forget. I was laying in my mother's living room one night and I ended up falling asleep and I had a dream about him. And in the dream, he was actually laying in the same spot and on the couch in my mother's living room. So it's like he replaced my being and he was just laying there, wasn't like, didn't move, didn't seem to be alive and or dead, was just laying there. And I think that was maybe my mind connecting the view of him in the casket from the funeral.
wow.
Just laying there, looked peaceful. And then my heart got really, really warm. So even though I wasn't in that state anymore, like I
Yeah.
wasn't actually laying there in that encounter and it was him, my physical heart in the real life felt very, very warm, as if in that moment he had connected with me to almost like check on me or protect me. And I remember waking up from that dream feeling like it couldn't have just been a dream, because what I felt was more than just like, oh, you had a bad dream, you had a nightmare, and you're like running through the forest and panting and racing. It wasn't like that. It was something that truly felt like an internally aligned spiritual encounter with someone that I had had a relationship with. And I think at that age, I kind of felt some guilt on in our last interaction because it wasn't the best. And when he ended up passing at 12, 13 years old, when you try to process like the last
Yeah.
moments of people, that kind of weighs on you because now you're trying to figure
Yeah.
out, like, did I handle that the right way? Was that really, really poor for me to handle it? Yes, I was kind of like protecting my brother, but now he ended up passing and you never got an opportunity to ever see him again.
Yeah.
Is that the way that you would have wanted to, encounter with your uncle at that time? But that moment for me, again, was very positive. It definitely came off as he was coming to say, hey, just letting you know you have people in your corner and you're good. And not that
Yeah.
I wasn't good at 13 at that time. Like everything was
Yeah.
totally fine, typical teenager, childhood, whatever. But my heart just felt so warm. And I knew that it was actually him. A second encounter, I would say, in this same way, my grandfather passed away a couple years ago. It's crazy because my life was in a really, really pivotal time period. I wasn't yet going through my divorce, but I knew in that moment that I was going to get a divorce, you know, like I was still kind of like trying to figure out in my head some of the logistics. And obviously I still loved him and I wanted to make sure that the way that I was going to end our marriage was also integral and representative of what we shared. Like I didn't want it to be a nasty situation or whatever. So it took some time for me to finally get to the finish line of that, of making the decision of my divorce. But I always knew in my heart at that time that I was going to. And I remember my grandfather ended up passing away. And after he passed away, I had a dream. And in the dream, I like met a fork in the road, and it was like a regular desert road. And there were two directions. And one direction was like my current life as it stood with my husband at the time, my job at the time, all the things that I was just continuing to do in my life. And the other direction at the fork, my grandfather was standing there in one of his blue suits that he used to wear to church. And I remember I met the fork in the road and I could see myself naturally trying to go toward what I was comfortable with, which was my current life, my husband, all of the things that felt to be normal for me at that time. And my grandfather was like, in the dream, he said to me, he's like, come this way. It's totally fine to do something that you're not comfortable with because on this side of things, I'm here and you will always be okay. And when I tell you, Ash, that is the reason why I decided to get a divorce
My
because
heart.
I knew, and again, marriage is hard, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not, you know, trying to tell people the minute you have a dream and you feel like it's a sign that you just jump and leave your marriage. But at that time period, I had already dragged out something for 2 years that I knew that I needed to find the courage to leave. But when you come from a Christian family and you also, you know, are thinking about the fact that you love this person and you committed to build a life with them, it's a very hard tug of war between how you feel in yourself and what you know to be true. It's like your mind and your heart constantly working against each other. And something about that moment and my grandfather being there for me validated the feeling of you can actually find the courage to leave this person and deserve a partner that is going to be there in ways that are exemplary of how your grandfather treated your grandmother in their 60 plus years of marriage before he passed, right?
Yeah.
So in some ways, my paranormal experiences have turned out to be positive. In general, I feel like people are like, God, give me a sign. And then there's this big billboard that's like, leave your man. And they're like, nah, I'm gonna just keep driving past the billboard.
What does
But
that mean? Let me go in this direction.
right. And I had gotten a lot of billboards. Don't get me wrong. Like over the time period, like I said, that 2 year period where I knew in my heart that I have to move on from this person, I kept ignoring the billboards. But that dream, Ash, I was like, this is the sign. This is it. Like you cannot keep running from this anymore. And now 2 years later, I'm happier than ever. I'm at the most peace that I've ever felt.
I always think that those stories bring comfort to me, for
Yeah,
sure.
100%. And I think there's obviously the horror stories and there's obviously like fear-based things that people have gone through. And I think a lot of the US pushes fear-based things around like the supernatural because obviously capitalism and
Yeah.
they make money off of horror and Halloween. But I think not only in just my experience, but what I've heard from family members and friends, like when you find those moments that feel to be almost like a miracle interaction with someone that maybe meant a lot to you in your life.
Yeah.
I truly feel like it's them coming back to say, like, my spirit has come to tell you this thing.
Yep.
And you can choose now what to do with it, but I'm just letting you know that I'm here.
Like you just kind of highlighted, it's not always scary, but sometimes it is. So, what is the scariest or most unexplainable encounter that you've ever had
Yeah.
with the supernatural?
So, in my dad's side of the family being Christian Pentecostal, we also own a ton of churches, the Shiloh Apostolic Church of Jamaica. I will also like tout my grandfather's name in this portion of the video. He's a national hero of Jamaica. A lot of people don't know that. Bishop Lee H. Walsh. His servitude for the country and the way that he's not only pushed Christianity, but just in giving back positive ways. And he was recognized for that, like, just shortly before he passed. So it was a beautiful moment also for him to finally like get the recognition he deserved after all his hard work. But I bring that up to say, because we were such a big church family and people knew our church, we did have church conventions. And I remember one year we had our church convention in Mandeville. For any Jamaicans watching, Yaldeville, as some of you guys would call it if you don't want to say Mandeville. And at that church, there was a graveyard, I would say, not far at all. Like, it was just a very short walking distance away. And growing up in Jamaica, which I'm sure might be similar in Trinidad as well, playing on the graves is not a big deal. Where I feel like in the United States, it feels to be a bigger deal because, again, death is usually fear-based, whereas in the Caribbean, African cultures, death is usually a celebration of life. And it doesn't mean that people aren't mourning once that happens, but we truly do have celebratory, I would say, responses to when someone passes away. So playing on the graves is not necessarily a big deal, even though, you know, if you point at a grave, you might have to cut your fingers off now to get rid of it.
No big deal.
No big deal. So kids were playing on the graves, and my cousin and I were always a little too scared to do that because, again, we had already started going to school in the United States. So we kind of knew, like, playing on any graves because we had a different perspective of what that meant for us. And these kids were playing on the graves, you know, just playing, you know, tag, running around, whatever might have you. And I would say age group was between maybe 7 and 11, so young kids. And I went to a little shop not too far from the church to go get a snack, to go get a banana chips. And coming back, I'll never forget, I'm in a little white dress. I have on my church socks, you know, little church socks with the white frillies that goes around your calf. Your church shoes. I have my banana chips, and I'm heading back to the tent where we're having the night service. At this point, it's like actually night. And I remember all of this commotion, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, why is everyone like kind of shouting? And it didn't really sound like there was a problem, but there was definitely something going on. In my 7-year-old mind, I'm like, okay, I need to now go back into the convention to see what's going on. My family, obviously, in owning the church, has their section of the convention that we're all sitting at. So I go in, and I kid you not, one of the boys that was playing on one of the graves, I guess, as Jamaicans would say, spirit took him over, and he literally started to flail and act and respond like a demon having an exorcism. And his eyes were rolling in the back of his head. He's speaking in tongues. His body is shaking. And at this point, like me, in being so young, I had never like watched the exorcism movies or whatever, but again, now I'm connecting the dots of he played on that grave. He probably pointed at one of them, and the spirit now took him over, and the demon is in his body. And
oh God.
Jamaican people, and especially Jamaican Christian people, and especially Jamaican Christian Pentecostal people, are not playing about no demon. Ashlee laid this boy down in the front of the church convention on what I don't even remember, but in my mind, from what my memory is telling me, it was like this little church bench, like this wooden, brown, maybe auburn church bench that obviously has been used over time. So picture this white tent, maybe could hold about 200 people, big white tent in the middle of Mandeville, Jamaica, which is known for its red dirt, and this brown wooden used bench at the front of the convention. And this child, about 9 to 10 years old, laid down in his little church clothes. Just literally, his chest is pumping, his eyes is rolling in the back of his head. He's speaking in, like all types of things. And all of a sudden, one of my aunts and a couple other people start to come over and start praying over him. Next thing you know, there's holy water coming out, there's oil, tambourines are going, and there is this, you know, like when you watch stories about like African villages, how they have these ceremonies that feel to be so primal and so like rooted in the homeland, and only people in that tribe will understand the importance of what is happening for that group of people. That is how it was, where it was like everyone in that room knew what time it was immediately. Like it was an exorcism mode to get this demon out of this child. And music is going, tambourines are going, prayers are happening, holy oils going on foreheads, his body is shaking, and they're saying things like, "We cast the demon out of you in Jesus' name," shouting scriptures. And it was the most horrific experience of my life because I genuinely, I was still stuck at the fact that the demon could really go on the boy.
Yes.
And parts of you at that age truly believe that, but then you start saying to yourself, is he faking? Because in your mind, you're like, well, none of the other kids have the demons in them, and they were playing on the graves too, so how come you're the only one? Well, you must have pointed at the grave, right?
And you're
And
thinking, I
it
just
was
played with you, boy. Like, what is this switch? What is
like it's about
happening?
to be
Yeah.
me. And it's just so funny because I remember standing there and I had my banana chips in my hand and I just couldn't even function. Drop my banana chips because I'm in shock. And his body is just moving and flailing and there's music. And it just felt like the most tribal thing that I could have ever experienced. And I'm not only trying to refer to like African cultures, but that I'm trying to bring the image across of how it truly felt that only these people in this room, in this tent, understands what's going on and can connect in this moment with what we're
Wow.
experiencing. And I think it was the first time I had realized like not everyone is scared of the same thing. I don't think if they were scared in that room, they didn't show it. Like, they were just like, we've done this before. We're in go mode. We're getting this demon out. We're casting him away. We're going to pray over this boy and he's going to be fine. All that to say that that ritual happened for like I don't know, maybe like 20, 30 minutes. And again, I'm just trying to remember from being 7. It could have been shorter or longer. It could have been 5 minutes. I was
Hmm.
scared. But it was truly like the most paranormal thing that I've ever experienced. And then, of course, in growing up and then watching Exorcist, when Exorcist came out, I was like, this is not a joke. This is real. Like these
Yeah.
people are really
Hmm.
experiencing this and like demons are really getting into their soul and it requires a priest or a pastor to get
Yeah.
this demon, cast this demon away. But I think like for some people, they're like, oh, that's not real. And I'm like, no, I have seen that with my own 2 eyes, like in front of my face. And unless that kid was a great actor, which at 9 years old, I doubt it, it was the most unexplainable thing that I can ever even try to describe to you. The way in which he was speaking in tongues and his body movements were almost like conflicting. It was so weird. Thankfully, I haven't seen anything like it since, but I all the time, I'm like, that to me solidified that there is more to our existence than we understand. And we obviously have tried to explain over the years with fables and tales and things like that. But I do genuinely believe in supernatural experiences. And I don't always think it has to be scary. Like I said, I think there are instances where it could be for your protection, or it could be a guiding light, or your family just simply stopping by to say, hello, I'm just still here. But I definitely believe that they exist.
Wow, well, thank you for sharing that. I like that you balanced it out with some nice encounters and then we closed it out that way. So thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's flavors and frights. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what foods make you nostalgic and make you feel really connected to Jamaica.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say Jamaica without saying jerk chicken or jerk anything. I could literally eat jerk chicken every single day. It is my favorite Jamaican meal. But I would say what always brings me back to feeling like home is ackee and saltfish,
Hmm.
tail, curry goat. And then, funny enough, what makes me think about childhood, which is also an ongoing debate between Jamaicans and Trinidadians, is KFC. Patty and cocoa bread, coconut water, coconut drops, anything with coconut
Yes.
just always makes me feel like I'm just right back at home growing up in Jamaica.
I love that. So how do you think Bayesian jerk chicken compared to Jamaican jerk
No,
chicken?
ma'am. No, ma'am. I think it was flavored very well. It was seasoned very well, but it wasn't necessarily jerk. But it was good. It just wasn't jerk, you know?
Got it. Got it. It didn't hit
They
the
had a
mark.
good attempt. Yeah, they had a good
Hmm.
attempt. I would say on the jerk scale, it was like a 6, but on the meal scale, it was a 9. Like that chicken was bomb.
It was. All of the food was really good. It
Yeah.
makes me want to go back. We're gonna go back. And
We're
then I
gonna
have
go
to go
back.
to
I'm going back
Jamaica.
this. Yes, you have to go to Jamaica, but I'm going back to Cropover this year, Ash, because Mass Day is on my birthday this year. Right, and this year I told myself for my birthday, now that Rihanna and I are besties, I'm getting on
Clearly.
that.
Well, do you want to share your Rihanna encounter? I feel like that was pivotal.
Oh my gosh, that's probably the most important story and why like the Caribbean is so beautiful. So we were in Barbados for Cropover. It was also my birthday weekend, but Cropover was definitely the highlight of the weekend. And as Ash said to start this, we were, walking up and brooking up, and we're literally in Mass Day. And all these people are like, Rihanna's in that truck up there. Rihanna's in that truck up there. And in my mind, I'm like, there's no way, because she hadn't been to Cropover since she had her kids. And we look up and it's really Rihanna. And we just start booking it. Like, I just remember we must have ran for like
Go
a
for it.
solid, like 2 minutes to catch this truck. We're booking it. We're moving through all these people, and all these people are like, oh my God, Rihanna, Rihanna, Rihanna. And I remember Ash being like, I'm going to tell her it's your birthday. And Ash was like, it's my friend's birthday. And Rihanna looked over and was like, you happy birthday. And ever since then, my life has been made. My life has
Yeah.
been okay. No
It
one.
was the top moment of my year, top moment
Right. And it was
Cropover.
right. Every time I feel sad, I just go back and watch that video. Like, what is there to worry about? Me and Rihanna are friends. I appreciate you inviting me in for making me be a part of it for your first run. I'm sure it's going to grow. I think it's one of the most unique things that I've heard about in such a long time. And I'm just so excited for you.
Until our next carnival together, really.